And we are back. We're back. We're going over to beautiful USA. We have with us today Rick Bleiweiss. He is here with us as a Grammy nominated producer, a recorded songwriter, and of course, let's see what else, because he's also the book author of a beautiful release recently, and we're here to share. So we welcome you, Rick. How are you doing? Welcome to the Lady Tracey Show.
Oh, thank you, Lady Tracey. I'm doing great. I appreciate being here. I'm going to enjoy this segment with you.
Now, what I love, Rick, is the amount of amazing background images that I'm seeing. And I want to ask, how did one person become so multi-talented? Who is Rick Bleiweiss?
Oh, well, first of all, for those who can't see what you're seeing, what's on the wall in my office where I am presently, behind me are a bunch of gold and platinum record plaques from various artists and movie soundtracks that I worked on over the course of my life. And who I am is I'm really kind of followed three paths my entire life. One path was in music. I started playing guitar probably when I was about 8, and I started playing in bands when I was about 12, which was in 1956, right at the beginning of rock and roll. And I really stayed in music, and still, I mean, in this office that I'm sitting in, I have 4 guitars and a keyboard, and I'm still recording and writing music. I've never left that, so that's one track. Another track is that I have always written. I wrote my first thing. I wrote and published a sports newspaper when I was 12 years old also, and I sold the 4 copies to my neighbors. I wrote a play when I was 15. I wrote film scripts when I was in college and film school. And I wrote newspaper columns and magazine articles, but never a novel until the current one, The Pignon Scorpion and the Barbershop Detectives. The third path that I went down was, I'm kind of fortunate that in my head, my left brain and my right brain both function pretty well together. Some people are all one or all the other. I seem to be able to tap into both sides of my brain. So my third career track has been being a senior executive in the music and publishing industries. Wow. And so I kind of have a bent toward business. When I was in bands, I was always the leader of the band and worked with the agents and the managers. So I kind of have this duality going on of creativity and business.
Wow, I think you're just our superhero right now, a little bit of everything. Because on my show, you get executives, you get musicians, you get producers, you get authors, and you're a little bit of everything. So you're like my superhero right now, Rick, in case you don't know. So, I mean, this is just huge and amazing at the same time. So, Rick, when you figured out, matter of fact, let me ask you, you've mentioned it all, you've done it all. Which one is your favorite journey? What's your favorite journey above, all of this multitasking?
My favorite journey is my life. I mean, I know you're looking for a specific, do I prefer being an author or a musician or an executive? And that's sort of like asking someone, which of your children do you like better? I mean, it's, I have chased the pot of gold at the end of rainbows my entire life. Wow. And I always found that the chase was even more exciting and more fun than whether I found the pot of gold or not. And sometimes I found it and sometimes I didn't find it, but I always loved the chase. And here I am, I'm 77 years old, my first published novel, and I'm still chasing the rainbows. So it's my life that I have just liked the best. And, I had started a company that put up a sign on Times Square in Manhattan. In fact, on the building where the apple drops on New Year's Eve, it was a multi-story sign. And I created a company called Your Name in Lights in Broadway. And I would offer people that I would put their name on this big electronic sign. They could wish somebody a happy birthday or say, will you marry me, or whatever they wanted to do, put your name in lights on Broadway. And I thought I had an absolute home run. Well, the company was an absolute disaster, but I loved but I loved the experience.
Right.
On the other hand, I produced a record that, an album that was Grammy nominated. I produced another single that popularized whistles and discotheques. I produced another one that the NFL, National Football League, used, another one that was in a Coca-Cola commercial. So I've seen both sides, finding and not finding it, but I love the adventure.
The adventure. And I think you're perfectly right, Rick, because the journey is always the most memorable one. What you went through, how did you get there? I think that is the most amazing part. And you're totally right. Now I'm going to let you give a few advice to a few of our listeners before, further down, but let's get to this book, because this book is now your major release, and I want to know what was the inspiration behind the title and how can this book benefit our readers.
Okay, so the inspiration for the book really was twofold. I lived in New York City my whole life until 2002, when I moved to this small little town of Ashland in Southern Oregon. And when I moved here, it turned out that my next door neighbor was in a writing group. She was a poet. And we became friendly, and I told her I had done some writing over my life. And she said, well, why don't you come and join the writing group? Maybe it'll inspire you, and I think you would like the people in it and they would like you. So I did. And I started writing short stories. And one of the short stories that I started writing was the first story that appears in the Pignon Scorpion book. But at that point, I did not have a name for the character. All I had was the setting and the era, England in 1910, and I knew that it was taking place in a barber shop where a police inspector was going to solve his cases with the aid of the barbers and the shoeshine man and some other colorful characters. And you have to understand, the way I write, I plot nothing out in advance. I just sit down at a computer and I see the story play out in my head like a movie. And my job is to type away and capture it for a reader.
And so, but Rick, I don't cut you, but for an executive producer, publisher, someone who has been in the mission field, this should be like taking a cake from a baby. This should I have to say that this should have been like the most easy thing you've ever done.
Well, at the time I was writing it, I don't know. I'd never written a novel before. So, it was like, the interesting thing is most of what I wrote over the course of my life and my career was nonfiction. I was writing magazine, newspaper columns about music and other topics. And, so I really wasn't a fiction writer. So it was a little less easy for me because I'm switching gears but what was good was I tried to write the book, the Scorpion book, in a way that it might feel like nonfiction. So, because I tried to use the language of the era and the style of the era, and I researched. You have no idea how much research I had to do to make sure I knew what words were being used at that time, what language, what clothing, what names. So, I wanted it to kind of read like nonfiction, even though it was obviously fiction. Okay, so I start writing this, and the writing group says, we love this, you've got to expand it into a book. So I figure, okay, I better have a name for this character. And I wanted him to have an unusual name. Part of the inspiration for this book is that my entire life, I have been a reader of mysteries, and particularly loved English mysteries. I've read every Sherlock Holmes, every Agatha Christie, and I've read things like Raymond Chandler and Chester Himes and Rex Stout and Earl Stanley Gardner, not all of whom are English, but I like that genre. So I was grounded already in mystery and not in violent, angsty mysteries, but more like cozy mysteries where there's, a hint of someone dying rather than the blood and guts, if you will, which is the way I've written the book.
Okay.
So it's that kind of like, so then I started writing the book and I needed a name for the protagonist. So I don't know why, it just came to me in my mind that his father was going to be Egyptian and his mother was going to be Haitian. Now I had to figure out how would I get them to meet. So in the book, there is a whole story about how his father and mother met and each of their backgrounds. And so once I figured out that the parents were going to be of those heritages, I started researching names. And I came across this last name, this family name of Scorbian, which is an Arabic Egyptian last name. And it stands for means someone who's adventurous and interesting. And that was his father. So I thought that's cool. And it was similar to scorpion. So it was not too foreign a sounding word, if you will. So then in my research on Haiti, I came across the fact that there is a mountain and a valley in Haiti called Pignon. It really exists. And so what I postulated in the book is that's where his mother and father met. That's where his mother was living. And so once they got married, they ceremoniously named their son after the town his mother lived in where they met. And I love the way Pignon and Scorbian worked together. It's not John Smith, it's a little different, like Hercule Poirot and Sherlock Holmes. They're not run-of-the-mill everyday names. I wanted a kind of a name like that, and I think Pignon Scorbian fits that.
Worked
now,
well.
Thank you. Now, what will people get out of the book? Okay, I would say a few things. First of all, at its core, it's a mystery, and it's an old-fashioned mystery, a throwback to classic whodunits. It's got 3 crimes in it, not just one: a fortune seeker, a murder at a circus, and a crime of passion. But it also has colorful characters and a lot of humor. So what I'm finding that people are liking about the book are a number of things. One, they like the mysteries. They like the throwback to the old style of writing from that era. It's kind of like a Downton Abbey kind of era, if you will. It is that era. But what people are finding is because that era was so kinder and gentler than today is, and because we have so many stresses in our lives today, that people are finding that they're using the book as an escape from today's news, that they can read it, they can laugh, they can be transported back to a gentler era and forget about everything that's going on in the world today while they're reading the book. And it's been very pleasing to me that many people have been saying that they love it for that reason.
Wow, thank you so much, Rick. And you mentioned something that I hope our listeners are paying attention to, that you did a lot of research on this book, even though it wasn't nonfiction, and I think this is the secret behind a good writing, a good story, even if it's not real, and I believe this is why persons are enjoying it today. And I thank you so much, Rick, for expressing, the deep truth of this awesome novel. And I hope that they can go and get it. So where can person get this book, and what's the cost for the book?
Okay, well, at the present time, the book is out in hardcover, ebook, and audiobook.
Okay.
The audiobook is available at the moment through Amazon and Audible, but will be available everywhere in June. The hardcover and ebook are available virtually everywhere on every site that sells sells books and ebooks. Many bookstores, both chains like Barnes and Noble and independent booksellers, are carrying the book. The book has, I believe, You know what? I'm not sure exactly what the pricing is. I know that the hardcover's in the mid 20s. The ebook is probably somewhere between $10 and $15. The audiobook, I don't even know what the audiobook's selling for. But I will also tell you that if any of your listeners are signed up with BookBub, BookBub is going to be running a special on it for 2 weeks in May, and they're going to be offering the ebook at a very discounted price. And then sometime this spring, we're going to be coming out with the paperback, and that'll probably go in like the $12, $13 range. So we're trying to make it affordable for everybody. And I believe on Audible, if people are members of Audible, they're going to be able to go and maybe get the audiobook for free because it's going to be enrolled in Audible Plus shortly. So I'm trying to get people to experience the book, because you also said, what's coming up. I have just finished writing the second book in the series. And a developmental editor that I'm working with just gave me his notes back. So now I'm working on doing the initial editing on the book. It'll come out this time next year. And it's the first 2 books in the series. And the other thing I'm really excited about is the week before last, a television and film production company in the United Kingdom just optioned the series for a TV series.
Wow.
Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be made yet, but it's a heck of a start.
It is, and we're in UK, so this is a whole bonus for England. Thank you so much, Rick, and this is just exciting, and I'm just happy that another amazing author has surfaced, and he's not just here to tell stories, but to let the readers enjoy what they read. So thank you so much, Rick. We appreciate you. Now, one last thing before you go, who would you like to acknowledge, and whomever that has been with you on this journey that you think is good to acknowledge?
Well, the book has multiple pages of acknowledgments in it because there are so many people who have been supportive of me my entire career, my entire life. Without a doubt, there's no question, first and foremost would be my wife, Deborah. So that's goes without saying, if you will. But beyond Deborah, I mean, I have to acknowledge my agents, Nicole Resinitti and Julie Gwynn of the Seymour Agency. I have to acknowledge Josh Stanton, who's the CEO of my publisher and the company I work for, Blackstone Publishing, which I think is the best publishing company in the world today. But I, of course, am a little prejudiced in that regard. I have to acknowledge all of my supportive friends, my family, my sons, my daughter-in-law, and everybody at Blackstone that has just made my dreams come true. I don't know. I wish there's no one person. It takes, how they say it takes a village. It took a village, it takes a village, and I believe in a village.
Wow, thank you so much, Rick. I can see how much this meant to you. And I thank you guys for sticking around with Rick, being a support system. And also I thank you, Rick, for being with us so we could share into this beautiful new release and celebration of what's coming up. And we appreciate you. Don't forget to keep us in the loop. It was a pleasure having you with us on the Lady Tracey Show. And we're looking forward for what's coming next year. So don't leave us out now. So there you have it, listeners. Rick Bleiweiss over there in Oregon, USA. He was here with us as a recording producer and, of course, a author and lots more. So thank you for sticking around, Rick. It was a pleasure having you. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for being with us on the Lady Tracey Show.
My pleasure.